Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Ephraim Graham.
And I'm Lori Johnson. Suspicions that North Korea was behind a destructive hacking attack against Sony Pictures and a threat against movie theaters has leaders calling for Washington to punish Pyongyang. Dale Hurd has the story.
The Interview is a farcical comedy about a plot to assassinate North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
You want us to kill the leader of North Korea?
Yes.
What?
North Korea called the film an act of war and warned the U.S. would face merciless retaliation, including attacks on theaters. Sony raised the white flag, announcing the film would be scrapped. In a statement, it said, "We stand by our filmmakers and their right to free expression and are extremely disappointed by this outcome."
It's wonderful to be lofty about ideals, but if some sort of tragedy had taken place, then you could make a case that Sony and theater owners would have had blood on their hands.
Not only will the film not be shown in theaters, but it won't be released online or on DVD. The decision was met with shock and even outrage. Star Rob Lowe tweeted, "Wow, everyone caved. The hackers won." Mia Farrow tweeted, "Sony is a disgrace. Sickening."
I understand the need to be safe, to make sure filmgoers are safe, but you can't buckle in just because somebody makes some threats.
Senator John McCain said in a statement, Sony's decision sets a troubling precedent that will only empower and embolden North Korea.
I think it is a precedent because even at the height of the Cold War, we weren't worried about depicting the Soviet Union in a bad light.
Some estimate Sony's decision could cost the company more than $100 million. If the U.S. government concludes Pyongyang was behind the Sony hack attack, it might cut that country's access to hard currency and declare it once more as a state sponsor of terrorism. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Pakistani military forces killed dozens of militants in an ambush. The military says it carried out the operation using air and ground forces Thursday and Friday near the border with Afghanistan, killing more than 60 militants. The operation comes days after a Taliban attack at a school in the northwestern region of the country that killed 148 people, mostly children.
The United States is not fully prepared for a nuclear terrorist attack or a large-scale natural disaster. That's according to a congressional audit. The report by the Government Accountability Office also found the government lacks effective coordination and in some cases is years away from ensuring adequate emergency shelter and medical treatment, saying it would take 1 to 5 years to determine whether people were exposed to unsafe levels of radiation and 5 to 10 years to plan for a full medical response.
A shrinking budget could delay your tax returns and make it harder for you to reach an actual IRS agent. That is the latest word from the agency's commissioner after Congress cut $346 million from the IRS budget. Its $10.9 billion budget is about $1 billion less than the agency received back in 2010. The latest cuts come just as the IRS begins to play a bigger role in the president's health care law. This year will mark the first time taxpayers have to report whether they have health insurance on their tax returns.
As the U.S. and Cuba work to restore full diplomatic relations, many hope the same policy shift will happen in Iran.
The U.S. and Iran haven't had formal diplomatic links since 1979, when Iran's Islamic Revolution took over the country. Twitter is serving as the sounding board for people to voice their opinions on the matter. Take a look at this post by the National Iranian American Council. The picture takes this quote by President Obama and simply changes the word Cuban to Iranian, saying, quote, "It's time to apply the same logic."
The policy shift also sparks conversation about Pastor Saeed Abedini, who's spending another Christmas in an Iranian prison. He recently wrote a Christmas letter to his family and supporters. The letter was released by the American Center for Law and Justice. Pastor Saeed writes, "We should be able to tolerate the cold, the difficulties, and the shame in order to serve God. We should be able to enter into the pain of the cold, dark world. Then we will be able to give the fiery love of Christ to the cold, wintry manger of those who are spiritually dead." This week, CBN News spoke with the ACLJ's Jordan Sekulow about the possibility of Pastor Saeed's release.
You know, I think that we have to carefully monitor the U.S. Negotiations with Iran. And I would take today's news, you know, when Alan Gross, the American who was being held in Cuba for nearly 3 years, or more than that, since 2009, so 5 years. So you just don't know what's going to happen when you wake up. You got to keep doing the work that you do, that we do to get Saeed home, and we ask people to continue to pray. And when we have a specific action item for them, that they still take part in that, because as today's news shows about another American who was wrongfully held by a country, you just don't know what efforts are going to be successful, and so you've got to keep doing everything you can. And we believe that's our duty as Christians, that we take every resource we can possible to do the smart things to get Saeed home.
To see our entire interview and learn about ways that you can help Pastor Saeed, log on to cbnnews.com.
Jury selection begins January 5th for the accused Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. Yesterday, at a pretrial hearing, the judge said he will rule in writing whether Tsarnaev can be tried away from Boston as his lawyers requested. But the real drama was outside the courtroom, specifically a testy exchange between a man who lost his leg in the bombing and protesters supporting Tsarnaev, who questioned whether there's any proof against him. Mark Fukuril held up his prosthetic leg and said, "That's proof right there." One of the demonstrators said, "You should care that they get the right guy," to which Fukuril replied, "Get a life, go to work." Tsarnaev is accused of carrying out the bombing with his brother, who was killed in a shootout with police.
The University of Virginia is still reeling after the high-profile murder of a student, followed by a Rolling Stone article on an alleged gang rape. But behind the scenes, a strong Christian community is working together to make a difference. Heather Sells has that story.
Shocking news has dominated life on this prestigious campus this fall. First, the September disappearance and murder of sophomore Hannah Graham. Then last month, Rolling Stone magazine published an account of an alleged gang rape at a UVA frat house. It led to protests and investigations, and then the magazine apologized for discrepancies in the story. Still, its description of a campus culture of sexual violence has rattled the community.
In a lot of ways, that really blew the lid off things, and suddenly students were lining up at our doors and wanting to talk.
Bill Wilder oversees the Center for Christian Study at UVA. The nonprofit offers students a quiet place to study, think through their faith, and relax. During exams this last week, hundreds visited daily for free snacks and the opportunity to sort through a traumatic time.
Personally, for me, I think it's been the hardest semester I've ever experienced at UVA. And it's brought up a lot of questions in my faith, a lot of fear.
It's just been tough. Do you see a lot of people a lot of your friends that are just really broken and losing hope?
The center and other Christian ministries here have served as an anchor both for Christian and non-Christian students.
Definitely being in a community like this, having friends that are believers, has been something really encouraging.
Katie Nowell serves the UVA students who are part of the Greek system. She says for these students, it's been a season of grief.
It's really hard to talk about the brokenness of this. It's really hard to talk about this culture and that our brothers and sisters are being assaulted like this. And we hate that. But we know that we serve a God who brings healing and brings justice and hates those things too.
Going forward, it's clear to most that this campus, like many around the country, needs to rethink its social culture and how best to inspire healthy relationships. For Christian students here, it's an opportunity right now to influence and encourage.
People have started turning to their Christian friends and just kind of asking them, what do they think about this? How are they processing it? How do they view it?
These students may be one of UVA's best kept secrets.
For the world to say, oh man, it's so dark. I'm like, no, there's light here and there's good here. And there are strong Christian men and women who are sharing the gospel with their brothers and sisters.
And they may be the change agents that help turn the university around after a season of ugliness and despair. Reporting in Charlottesville, Virginia, Heather Sells, CBN News.
An atheist group is suing the state of Wisconsin. The Freedom from Religion Foundation is suing to get records related to the state's contraceptive mandate. In July, state leaders said they would no longer enforce the contraceptive mandate on employers with religious objections like Hobby Lobby. The atheist organization filed an open records request asking how the state planned to implement the changes. They say the state did not produce all of the records in its possession. The lawsuit asks a judge to force the release.
Coming up, the Duggars say they are not backing down. Hear why they say recent criticisms of their show has only made them stronger.
Jim Bob Duggar says a push to have his family's TV show taken off the air won't succeed, and the controversy has only made them stronger. An online petition calling on TLC to cancel 19 Kids and Counting garnered 180,000 signatures. More than 200,000 people have signed a counter-petition in support of the Duggars. The Washington Post reports the petition to remove the show began after Michelle Duggar campaigned against an LGBT anti-discrimination ordinance in Arkansas. In a recent speech, Jim Bob Duggar said, quote, "We love everybody. It is a small group creating this fuss. All it has done is give us more exposure." CBN News did reach out to TLC about the possibility of the show's cancellation. They declined to comment.
Former American Beauty contestants visited Jerusalem recently as part of a trip to show the real face of Israel to celebrities in hope that they'll spread the truth about the Holy Land. CBN's Annika Kopp has that story.
Pageant winners usually take the spotlight, but recently, these beauty queens traveled to the place that's often the center of the world stage.
Through this experience, visiting Israel, people, including this delegation, understand what is the connection of the Jewish people to this land.
The trip here to Jerusalem for the group was a first visit. For some, it was a profoundly moving experience.
Actually, right now, I feel like I'm in a state of euphoria. Like, my hands feel tingly. I feel weightless still. I was just at the prayer wall, and it was just really emotional.
Jerusalem has been transforming, cleansing, by far the most beautiful experience of my whole life.
Ariel Bullstein leads the Face of Israel, which invited the pageant winners to visit.
People who win those titles, Miss America or Miss United States, they're very important because they are a media in their own. They have hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, on Facebook. Their opinions really matter.
They said the trip had changed the perspective of the country, and now they're going back with a new message.
Nobody really knows the truth and really what is over here, so I would love to be able to go back and talk about it and say, no, you need to come visit, like you need to go see it. You shouldn't be so afraid.
I grew up in Alabama, where I never feared for my safety going to school every day. I've never even seen a bomb shelter. So being here was very eye-opening, and I think that now that all of us have experienced it, we understand that there's so much more going on in this country besides that.
The highlight of the trip was praying at the Western Wall for the first time.
I'm a Christian, and so just like feeling like the stones where Jesus has been, and I just like felt his presence there so much, and knowing that he's a miracle worker and that like our prayers are important to him.
So many tears. I'm going to start crying now. It was the most beautiful experience in my whole life, and I just wish more people could come here.
You can see the number of prayers that are put in there, and and then you look around the whole wall and you realize that actually the hopes and prayers of the whole world are here in this place.
And what affected them the most?
Israel is a different world, and it's taken me by surprise, and it's definitely something that's changed my life, is getting to see all of this amazing stuff that you've always read about and heard about, but now actually getting to see in person. It's really something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Today has been the most life-changing experience that I've had, and Christianity is something that is very new to me in the last year or so, and so to be here, it's only furthering those beliefs. To see the Bible come to life in front of your eyes is just something that you can't explain.
Annika Kopp, CBN News, the Old City, Jerusalem.
Up next, we'll show you the Christian world of Bilbo Gandalf and Frodo.
The Battle of the Five Armies hit theaters Wednesday, and fans of The Hobbit will head to Middle-earth one last time.
That is the world created by the legendary author and Oxford professor J.R.R. Tolkien. In his works, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are the second and third most read novels of all time.
And as Paul Strand reports, these great reads are loaded with Christian wisdom.
As The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies hits theaters, it ends an entertainment series that was decades in the making. But a new book, The Hobbit Party, points out that entertainment is just a part of these Middle-earth movies and the J.R.R. Tolkien books they're based on.
Tolkien had more to offer than just a really good yarn.
According to co-author Jay Richards, they also portray an entire universe of moral, government, and economic systems. That's why it's subtitled The Vision of Freedom That Tolkien Got and the West Forgot. The evil, power-crazed Sauron came out of Tolkien's experience of witnessing the brutalities of fascism and Nazism in World War II and the communist cruelty that followed.
There's a theme throughout The Lord of the Rings of a concern for the centralization of power. I mean, the ring itself, the ring of power that the good guys spend the entire story trying to get rid of, not trying to gain, this power to dominate the will of others.
While World War I vet Tolkien hated the senseless slaughter of war, he loved liberty even more, so his heroes constantly fought for it in The Lord of the Rings.
A day may come when the courage of men fails.
The good guys in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, they recognize that sometimes you need to fight, you need to be willing to die, and the cause in every case that they're willing to die for is freedom.
Tolkien said he was a hobbit in all but height, and the Shire where hobbits lived reflected not only his idyllic childhood hometown, but the way he thought society should run, a place of almost no laws and only a tiny bit of government. He admitted to his son he leaned towards anarchy and hated the idea of people lording it over other people.
Tolkien said famously, "It is the most improper job of any man to boss others, least of all those who seek the opportunity."
Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings as he watched Britain slide into a soft socialism. He was horrified the citizens of the Christian nations would give up their God-given liberty in exchange for security offered by all-powerful governments.
Would essentially be docile sheep guided by the shepherd.
He was hopeful art like his could shake them up and wake them up. As for economics, hippies dug The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings because they saw Tolkien as a cool anti-capitalist, and that creating creatures like the aristocratic Smaug was his way to show it. But Richard says Tolkien used the character to illustrate the absolute worst traits of a wealthy, non-investing, non-capitalist.
There you are, thief in the shadows.
Who sits atop literally a pile of gold that belongs to other people. This is not a critique of the capitalist or the entrepreneur. This is the critique of the miser who hoards his wealth rather than putting at risk. That's what enterprise is about.
Tolkien portrayed prosperous worlds of robust capitalism and free trade at the end of both books.
A widening trade, not just between different sort of human populations or different cities, but actually interspecies trade between hobbits and dwarves and elves and men.
Gardener Sam personifies the world working at its best as he creates wealth with his hands and the future with his wife.
Puts together both our economic activity as creatures made as stewards in the image of God, to steward and to till and to keep the garden, and also to multiply, to have children.
The deeply Christian Tolkien intentionally used humble hobbits as heroes, a way to show that even the least of us deeply matters and can change our world for the better.
It only occurred to someone who had this vision that the creator of the universe could become incarnate as a man born of a woman in a stable in a humble village. It's only that kind of vision that I would think would lead someone to think to create heroes like hobbits.
I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you.
Near the climax of Lord of the Rings, it's the humble servant Sam who literally bears Frodo like a cross and saves the world.
And I hope that speaks to us as human beings, especially those of us that might think, well, who am I? What important position am I playing? Well, take some inspiration from Frodo and from Sam.
An Indiana nursing home is fighting back after pranksters stole their 2-foot baby Jesus statue and returned it 4 days later. Now their baby Jesus is going high-tech with a tracking device. New York-based company Brickhouse Security is donating several GPS monitors to the retirement home. The other nativity figures will be fitted with tracking devices as well.
All right. Well, Orphan Annie is back. This time it's in theaters and opening nationwide today. The Hollywood heavyweight behind this film is the same preacher and film executive who helped to greenlight Heaven is for Real earlier this year. I sat down with Devon Franklin just days ago to talk about this latest work of inspiration. America's favorite orphan, Annie, has been a cartoon, 2 films, and a Broadway show. And now it is in theaters again, starring Academy Award-winning actor Jamie Foxx and young actress Quvenzhané Wallis, who was nominated for an Oscar for her performance in Beast of the Southern Wild back in 2012, the youngest nominee in history.
Put your bag down. You're not going anywhere.
Sandy's gotta go.
Stop it. You and Sandy are staying here, and I don't care what happened last night.
No, I mean Sandy's gotta go.
No, I mean, Sandy's gotta go. Okay, well, is it champagne or gelato?
What?
Is it Mountain Dew or is it just plain old Dew? Is it lemonade or chicken nuggets? I should go. Now I want to go because my bladder's full. Come on, let's go.
Behind the scenes of this project are actor Will Smith, rapper Jay-Z, and preacher and film executive Devon Franklin. Annie, why do that film again?
It's a process that's taken years, and it's a process that's kind of evolved organically. But you know, God's timing is always perfect.
Absolutely.
So I think that this movie coming out right now, we couldn't have chosen a better time for this film to come to the world.
Franklin is a Hollywood champion of inspirational entertainment and recently started his own production company to bring more of it to the small and big screen. So after seeing Annie, how do I leave the film feeling better?
All that's going on in the world, you know, and I think that every time you turn on the news, there's always some new tragedy or some, you know, new tribulation or trial that we have to endure. And I think a movie like Annie, you know, really is a celebration of family. It's a celebration of hope. It's a celebration of optimism. It's a celebration of faith. And I think that we need to, you know, especially during times that we perceive as really dark times, you know, we need hope. And I think movies like this, where you can take your whole family to it and enjoy it and sing and laugh and cry, I think this is really important to kind of keep our spirits up and to keep our minds and hearts focused on, you know, even though we may be in a dark day at times, you know, the light is there.
I want to see that.
Me too. Got a date with my daughter on Sunday. We'll be there.
All right.
That is going to do it now for CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
And tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. We hope you'll join us again next time. Have a great day, everyone.